Hi, it's me. Welcome back to my little channel here, my little corner of the internet. And I am here for updates on my summer projects. There's a few, and I wanted to just provide some sort of little update about what I'm doing and what I'm working on and show you my little progress reports. So for my summer collection of things, projects, sewing and knitting and crochet, which I mentioned in my last video, I have like a whole queue of things and I went through and I dropped the links to the patterns and all that. Well, the sewing projects are temporarily on hold because as it happens, I like have all the fabric for all the projects. I cut out most of it, printed out the patterns, assembled the patterns, cut the fabric pieces. I was like ready to go and like ordered all my notions and everything. And I was just like, cool, we're ready. Let's do it. I'm psyched. And like as I'm starting to sew, like one of the top, the Gloria Sun top, my machine just started squeaking, and then it just started doing that clunk, 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 clunk thing where like it sucks the fabric down into the like into the dog teeth, down into the bobbin case, and I was like I was it's like Super Saiyan mode. I was so mad because I spent like the whole day prepping the fabric, and I even did a little test run of some scrap, and yeah, it just all that to say, I almost threw it out the window, but my boyfriend came in and was like, "Hey, like maybe step away. Let's I'll make you some tea. Like let's just." And I was like, but I took the machine in to get serviced because mea culpa, it has not been serviced ever, which I know is bad. I know is bad, and I only have myself to blame. But the thread tension is off, and yeah, I'm hoping there's nothing actually broken and it just needs a tune up. So I dropped it off at the repair shop and they said it's like a 3 week wait. So we should be coming up on 3 weeks this week. And I'm hoping I'll get it back and it'll be like brand new, or feel brand new anyway. It's from like 2015. So, but they can last a very long time with the proper upkeep. So yeah, that was on me, but I'm excited to get it back in and hopefully it's like smooth as butter and I will have a much easier time sewing than I have had for the last couple months trying to just be like, it's fine. So yeah, so stay tuned on that. I'm hoping to make a lot of progress relatively quickly. It's already starting to heat up here in Phoenix. It's hitting 90 this weekend, which is annoying because you hope every year that like it's not going to hit 90 until at least like April or May. I'm like, please, like, just give us a winter and maybe like a flicker of a spring, but it goes from, sweaters out and everything. It's like 45 degrees at night and then all of a sudden it's like, well, the low tonight is 75 and then now the high is 90, or it's like even more extreme, and it's messing with my heart, it's messing with my mind, my boyfriend as well. We're both just like, so hopefully in the not too distant future we'll actually live in a place with closer to 4 seasons, real ones, which would be very nice, and that will expand my options for things I can make. But in the meantime, we are charging ahead with summer. um, so while the sewing is on hold for just a short while, I've been cracking on with the knitting projects, and it has been a trial. Firstly, I did finish my crochet top, the It's a Beautiful Day top. I loved how it turned out. I haven't had a chance to wear it out yet because I was hoping to wear it with my Miller shorts because they're orange and I think it'd be so cute with this top. And I don't really have a lot of bottoms currently that I feel like really work for this top. But it looks like this. She's beautiful. I was initially a little hesitant to, like, I was like, oh, is it gonna be boxy? Is it gonna but I did a little tweaking. So the pattern's like pretty straightforward. The yoke is probably the most complex part, right? Because you got all these like increases and it's sort of like a floral kind of pattern. But there's different, for depending on the size that you want, there's different sizes of the yoke pattern. And it's just like a chart. And I'm not super familiar with charts, so it took me a minute to kind of get the hang of that. Usually I just do like the written instructions, but charts would be a good thing to know how to do. So yeah, I worked off the chart and initially I made the size that corresponds to like what my size is as dictated by the pattern. But then I realized that it was kind of like a more snug fit, and I wanted something that was a little bit looser, like a little bit of a wider neck. So I sized up on the yoke, but I didn't want to size up on the body. So because I initially started just with a larger size that the yoke had, and it was just kind of baggy and like not really flattering. And this is obviously not like necessarily a form-fitting top, but I wanted it to still like fit nicely. So basically what I did was I made the larger size yoke, and then unlike what the pattern dictated, which was to treble crochet in every stitch, I just, after the yoke was completed, I just sized down, or essentially reduced the stitch number and treble crocheted in every other stitch. And it brought it down significantly, and the fit is so nice. I'm gonna wait until like the end of the projects to like try them all on for you and show them how they look. But I really love the fit. The fit is really nice, and it's a nice like slender fit, which is great. Again, I was a little initially hesitant about wearing cotton or doing, because I made my feelings about crochet garments known before. But this is kind of like a nice open, kind of breezy thing. It's not quite see-through, but I think with um, the every other stitch made it just like a little bit more open, which is good. I didn't really want something that was going to be too dense, because even if it's cotton, it'll be heavier and like hotter, which is the exact opposite of what I want for this. So I love how it turned out. It's super nice. Even the colors, I like that it's just the sort of that dual tone color and not like 500 different colors. So A++ on this one. I love it, and I cannot wait to wear it out. Can't wait till my shorts are done, so I can just rock it, because I feel like it doesn't come down super low, and I want to wear something with like a higher waist, and I don't really have anything currently in my wardrobe that would really work with that. That's not just black, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't. It's not a black like color combo thing, right? And I want something bright. I want something fun. So stay tuned to see this in action later on. Other projects. So what I had planned was the Pierre dress, the like lace pattern dress, the Louisa skirt, which is like a wave lace pattern skirt, and then the birthday tee. So I've started all three. I've cast them all on, and I will show you where I'm at. So the birthday tee, I think, is going to be my white whale. I thought it was going to be the Pierre dress because it's all lace work, and I was like, oh my god, this is a lot, and a lot to keep track of. But once I started working off the charts, I was like, oh, okay, this isn't that bad. Because the chart's pretty, like, it's, all blocked out, and, when to increase and yarn over and all that. So I've just been following line by line, and it's actually been easier than I thought. So I'll show you that in a second. But my white whale is going to be the birthday tee. And I don't know what I was thinking or anticipating when I saw it. I think I just saw the pattern. I saw like the final, mock-up example, and I was like, oh, this is so cute. It's so interesting. And I did not consider how complicated it would be, because I started it and I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'm working with 3 different colors, and I went with Cascade Pandemonium. And so far I have this. It reminds me of Rainbow Sherbet, which is really fun. It has you do like some German short rows at the back of the neck and a twisted rib, which is really fun. I've been wanting to try a twisted rib instead of just a normal 1x1 rib for a while now, and I'm like, wow, where have I been? Obviously it looks a little different. If you haven't seen it before up close, I can show you. It's got almost more of like a raised slanted edge, which is kind of cool. It still gives the same 1x1 ribbing, but it's not as close together. Maybe that was my intention. Maybe not. Maybe that's how it's supposed to look. Either way, it looks really neat, which is nice. I think that's kind of my issue that I've had with doing 1x1 rib, where like, especially when you start, like the rows lower from where you start and the ones where you like kind of transition kind of get stretched out, like those stitches. And again, could be a tension issue on my part, but I've just found sometimes it's just not as consistent. It looks a little messy. And for 1x1, like it's so close together, it's typically not that big a deal, but I was excited to try this, and I love to learn a new technique. And this pattern has plenty of them. So I did the 1x1 rib. I might have done the back of the neck a little higher than it wanted me to, but I think it's kind of cool actually. So I'm gonna roll with it. And then I had to do a horizontal I-cord, which I've never done. I've done an I-cord before, but not on something that it was like, it's usually like as a finish on something. not on like an active edge. So that was interesting. I went to Fran Lopez's Instagram and found a video of her doing it because I was trying desperately to understand the written instructions, and I was like, what? So found her video on Instagram of her doing it on like a sleeve cuff. I think it's on her sweetheart sweater. And I was like, oh. So it turned out really nice. It's really smooth. It's just like a really cool like texture feature. But this is supposed, so now where I'm at, the place where I've left off is I have to do cables in this orange color. And they're going to be, again, whenever I come across a complicated pattern, my first thing is, looking at the pattern as a whole. And if I do that, it's like my first impulse. And if I do that, I'm like, what is going on? Right? Like, I think sometimes if you like skip ahead to kind of see what to expect, it doesn't, I mean, at least for me, it doesn't always make a whole lot of sense because I'm like, I don't know what this means. And I don't know what it's supposed to look like or where this step is or like what's going on with that. And so I think the way I've tried to just be like, okay, let's not give into our first impulse and let's just take it step by step. So the vintage pattern I'm working on, which I'll get to in a second, that's how I've tried to do it because I'm not super familiar with vintage patterns or pattern instructions for knitting. And so, I'm reading the thing as a whole and I'm like, what? So I'm like, okay, let's just break it down. Like literally we'll go one line at a time and just deal with it. And I'm sure it'll all make sense. And it has. So that's what I've tried to do with this so far. So basically, she says you're supposed to intarsia the cables, but it's also in the round. So to my knowledge, you can't intarsia in the round, but I guess you can. Or maybe she's calling it intarsia when it's something else. I'm not sure. But the cable pattern thing, I was like, okay, I think I got it because she has a chart. And again, I'm not super familiar with charts, but she has pretty detailed instructions on like, the glossary of terms. So I'm like, okay, I think I can figure this out. And I got as far as to like establishing the sections where the cables are going to be. I've got like my 4 little smaller balls of yarn just kind of in the 4 corners of the universe over here, trying to keep them like from not getting tangled. But then it wants you to like there's a sleeve chart as well, and you're doing these simultaneously. This is where I'm at. Because I got to that portion and I was like, okay, I'm following. And then it's like, now do the sleeve chart number 1. And the way it's written is just really confusing me. So I was like, okay, let me set this down before I continue. I have a craft meetup group that I meet up with on Mondays, and I might bring this with and the pattern to be like, does anybody here understand what I'm supposed to be doing? Because quite frankly, I'm a little lost. So that's sort of my current stopping point with that. Secondly, I have the Louisa skirt, which is lovely. So this is where I'm at so far. This is going to be the waistband. So it's going to fold over. I'm going to put some elastic in there, and I get my machine back so I can actually sew the elastic appropriately. But I'll put that in there and like sew this down. And yeah, so far so good. I have had to make a few tweaks to this. So initially I went with a larger size because like many people, of course, when you have a pattern and you're kind of trying to account for standard sizing, I understand you can't account for every single you know, nuance of everyone's body. You kind of have to go with like a standard measurement sort of thing, which I get. And that's the beauty of making your own clothes is you can make those adjustments for yourself. I'm not as accustomed to doing that with knitting as I am with sewing. So that's also been a new, adventure for me, something to learn. Because initially I went with a larger size to accommodate for like my hip measurement, but my waist is like not in the same category as my hip measurement. It's like, much smaller. So I actually had already started this and I was maybe like 3 or 4 sections in, and it's a lot. So I was really excited, but I was like, okay, let me stop here and let me put it on like a wire and try it on. And it was way too big. And I was like, no, because it wasn't like just a little bit big, that it's like, oh, it'll just be a little looser. But like, no, the waistband was way too big. Even with the elastic, it would have like bunched up like crazy. Like it was like two fistfuls of fabric on either side. And I was like, man. So I set it aside for like a few days, knowing that I would have to frog it. It just broke my heart to do it. But I did. And I was like, you know what? Just rip off the band aid. It is what it is. So frogged it. And then I kind of calculated my own measurement for stitches for the waistband, just because, again, like the size discrepancy between like, what your waist size and where I wanted it to sit versus the hip measurement, etc. is, it has to be custom. So, I mean, and essentially the structure of this skirt is basically a tube. And I'd made the N. Holman skirt by Kit Couture a year, 2 years ago. And it was just straight stockinette and it was like a tube, right? So I was like, okay, I kind of get the idea. And it was a similar like elastic waistband that you just fold over, you put the elastic in, or you put the elastic in, fold over, and then sew it closed, which makes a lot of sense because in time the elastic will rot and you want to be able to take it apart rather than and replace it rather than have to undo the entire skirt, right? Because they're those sort of waistbands where you just like fold it over and then knit it closed, and then you have to take apart the entire skirt to get the elastic out. So I think this is a better approach, and I think it's wise that she has you do it that way. So yeah, I calculated the measurement for where I wanted it to sit, not on my natural waist, just slightly lower, kind of like the top of the hip bone, and then did some more measuring to get it to like a larger size to accommodate for my hips. So it's a little bit wider. There's like a lot of increases on that first row that are not part of the pattern, like the lace pattern. It's fine. I got it to where I want it to be. Size is right. And so, yeah, I'm about to put it on some lifeline wire things, stitch wires to try it on, make sure we're on the right track. But I feel good about it. And I just think it's so pretty. It's once you get in the flow, it's really beautiful. I also quickly ran this under some water, not even to block it necessarily, but I had an issue last year where I wanted to make the Sew Summer shorts and the Sew Summer top by Jessie Maed. So I was like, oh, something for summer, just like a little thing to wear around the house. It's just basically like a boxy cropped tee and like shorts. And I never made shorts before, knitted anyway. And so I was like, okay, let's give this a go. So the pattern recommended the Undine fabric from Ritual Dyes, which I'd never worked with before. It's like a cotton linen blend. And I just had this issue where the green, I had like a sort of a dusty pink, a yellow, and like a jungle green, which was really pretty. And I loved the combo. But I finished the top. I did sort of like a striped situation and I loved it. I finished the top. I blocked it and the green dye bled all over the top. And I was like, no. So I did everything I could to get the dye out. It was the irony being that it didn't stay on the yarn like that it was supposed to be on, but it stayed really well on the other yarn. So yeah, it was really tragic. And I tried to over dye it with black, but you could still see sort of like the tone of the original colors underneath, and it just didn't really work for me. So that has been my experience with like non-wool yarn, really primarily, or like a cotton linen blend type thing. Obviously, this is silk, so this is the pure silk from Knitting for Olive. So I wasn't entirely sure how. This is my first time working with silk, so I was like, "Oh God, is this going to do the same thing?" I was just having flashbacks to that Undine yarn, and so I just ran it under the water because I'm like, "Well, this is just a waistband, so if it all goes to hell and it bleeds everywhere, like at least I'll know, right?" And maybe I'll have like a light blue, light blue stripe, but nothing happened. I like made the water a little hotter just to be sure. Nothing happened, so thank goodness. And I feel safe to proceed. So yeah, I love the wave pattern. It suggests doing like alternating colors for every lace section. I'm just doubling up on the colors because I really wanted like a thicker stripy wave for each color. And I'm really loving how it's looking. And yeah, it's so pretty. It's so pretty. It reminds me of my inspiration for the color choice because I'm not really like a navy color person. This isn't quite navy. It's like there's like a undertone of purple in here, almost like an indigo. Um, but it's French anemone, and then this is cream, I believe. But I was inspired by the boardwalk in Copacabana in Rio, and there's just like this really iconic, distinct like wave pattern, and it's like I think it's black mosaic tile and white mosaic tile, but the black in the sun, and for however long it's been in the sun or been installed, I think the sun has kind of made the black look like a little bit more of like a darkish blue, and I just thought it was really pretty. And I'm like, oh, this makes me think of like summertime, tropical, like I said, my little inspo. So I'm really excited for how this is going to go. And undetermined on how long I'm going to make it. I still have plenty of yarn to get through, which is good because I'm like, oh, it seems like a lot. It's not, right? It's like barely a fraction. I'm like, it's practically a belt right now. So we're on our way with this. I'm really happy I frogged it and restarted it, found the will to do so. And I think it's going to be really great. I'm excited to wear it. And then we have the Pierre dress, or what is the start of the Pierre dress. So this is the like lacework dress that's like a little more form-fitting than I'm using the soft lame yarn for, the Lang yarns. And this is it so far. It took me a while. Again, I was just trying to get accustomed to using the pattern and following the chart, because you have to kind of bounce back and forth between looking at the chart but also reading the instructions, and there's a lot going on. I printed that pattern out so I could just like have the pages side by side. But yeah, so this is just going to be, I don't want to put it on my chest because it's going to on the microphone. But so far so good. This is just the straps and like just the start of the underarm. And yeah, it's really pretty. I think once it's on the skin too, you'll see kind of like more of the contrast. But yeah, it's hard to see on camera, but it really does have like a strong blue tint to it. I think initially you're like, oh, it's sparkle. But yeah, it's really pretty. I'll zoom in there. So yeah, it's very blue. It's very cool. It's like this sort of, it's called petrol is the colorway, but it's almost like a really dark teal. And it's really interesting. Again, once I kind of got the hang of like doing the little blocks for the repeat pattern, I was like, oh, okay, we're in business. My only concern, and it could be a totally unfounded concern at this point, is that the pattern, so in the pattern, the original pattern was made, one version was made, I think, using the Knitting for Olive silk, the pure silk, and one was made using the cotton merino. And that's great, but it says in the pattern, it's like, don't worry if it looks too small. Like it's like a bit in big red letters. It's like, if it looks too small, don't worry, it'll bloom significantly once you block it. And I'm like, okay, but that's based on making the dress with those fibers, right? So like wool and cotton. I'm like, yeah, that's going to block differently than this because this is made of, I think it's like viscose and rayon. So I'm like, I think, well, I don't know if rayon you could consider, it's not technically a natural fiber. So I don't know if it's going to block the same way. It's got me a little concerned about the sizing and how that's going to work. Best case scenario, it's just like a little bit more snug. I mean, it does have stretch. I will say that, right? Like it's not like it's not stretchy. And like lame is kind of a stretchy fabric. So I'm like, okay, I think that's kind of built into it. But I just ran it under some warm water and like left it to like stretch out just to see. And I kind of held it up to myself and I'm like, okay, like this fits. But obviously we're just talking the front top of this dress. We're not even into like the rest of the body. So I'm curious to see how it's going to go. The next step is to do like start the two back panels. There's again two versions of the dress. One that's like open all the way down to like I think the mid back, and you can do like these little buttonhole closures, which is cute. But I'm not a big fan of like buttonhole closures like that. And the other version is to do like a big keyhole back, which is what I plan to do. So yeah, I'm gonna start the back panels shortly here and maybe like do some sort of whatever the knitting version is of like basting the parts together just to see how it fits, and see where we're at because I may have to size up for the bust, and then, you know, kind of finagle as I go, which sounds really annoying to do while working with this lace chart, but we will figure it out. So yeah, that's where I'm at with the summer projects. I do it to myself. Of course, I'm like, let me pick something really complicated. And honestly, I thought the Pierre dress would be the most complicated thing I was doing, but it's definitely the birthday tee. The birthday tee, I'm like, what? Like, so it's gonna take me a minute. I think I'm gonna try to work on finishing the Louisa skirt and maybe even the Pierre dress and save the birthday tee for last, potentially. There's just a lot going on. There's a lot of texture and like things happening. And I'm like, why didn't I think of this? Why did I think this one would be easy? I don't know. So yeah, so that's the status of the summer stuff right now as a side project, because of course, I don't know. I mean, there's a part of me that wants to stay like, let's focus on a single thing. And like, let's focus on what we said we were going to do. But at the same time, like, when the inspiration strikes, go off, right? But I started this pattern back in September, and I've just kind of been tinkering away at it ever since. And I knew it was going to take me a long time. So I've just been sort of working on this on the side, but it is my first vintage pattern that I've like actually made significant progress with. It actually fits. So that's a big game changer. It's this sweater from, I want to say it's maybe the 40s, late 40s, early 50s. It's called Soft as a Spider's Web. And it's just like a nice fitted, sort of like light sweater jumper that has a cobweb cowl. And I was really overwhelmed by the pattern, not because there's a lot, but because there's so little, right? There's not a whole lot of instructions. And it's like, oh, obviously this should make sense, as is the way with a lot of vintage patterns. They just assume you know what they're talking about. Um, so I've just been kind of tinkering away and trying to just like trust the process. And oh my God, so cool. I was like, whoa, they knew what they were doing. And I think part of it is because the pattern construction is so different than a modern pattern. You know, a lot of things are made in the round or the raglan sleeves or even drop sleeves, and it's pretty clearly laid out. Whereas this one, so this is the front panel that I finished, and oh my God, it fits so nice. At first I was like, what are you asking me to do? But this is like sort of the curved edge. It's gonna go about there before it gets attached to do the cowl, like the spider web pattern. I don't really know how that part's gonna work yet, but like I said, I'm trying to just like one step at a time. Let's not skip ahead, because if I skip ahead, I'll be like, ah, but all these steps will lead up to something making sense. So the front panel is made the same way as the back panel, is what it says. However, my back doesn't have a bust, so I've just been ignoring the increases for the back panel, and I've just been kind of keeping straight up until I get the length I want, and then I start to do the sort of curved edge because it has to be matching. So yeah, we're working on the back panel right now. Once the two panels are finished, then it wants you to make the sleeves flat and then attach them somehow, but not sew them together yet. And I'm like, again, I'm trusting the process. I'm trusting that these ladies knew what they were doing, and so far so good. And I'm like, wow, amazed at like the fit, and it looks great. So I'm like, okay, this may not make sense to me now, but in time it will. So I've been tinkering away on that. I also have to use like the world's smallest needles, is what it recommends. So, and it's all fingering weight. So it's just taking a really long time, but we're getting there. I'm almost done with like a significant portion of the back panel, and then it'll start to do all the like armpit decreases and shaping and all that stuff. So yeah, and then once we get to the sleeves, then it's just the yoke, but I'm sure it will all make sense the closer I get to that. So we'll see. Um, but that's kind of where we're at right now. And I just got a new back tattoo recently. So I have been wanting more backless or low back tops. So I saw the Brooklyn pattern, Brooklyn top, which is kind of like almost like just a front panel with like some straps at the low back and then like strap at the shoulder. And there's like an O-ring that like you would stitch into to kind of give it some tension and like, you know, hold it up, but otherwise completely backless. And I was like, that sounds fun. I have some Cascade cotton socks yarn from this other top I made like a year or two ago that It's really comfortable. It's red. I was like, I think this would be really pretty. I am really a fan of red. I love like saturated, like intense colors. So I'm thinking I might try to throw that together also for summer, throw it into the mix. I also have Cascade Pandemonium yarn in Ivy. I'm really a fan of the Cascade Pandemonium for summer. I made the Amy top last year and I just didn't really like the fit, but it was Amy top by Mochi Knits. I didn't really like the fit. It just wasn't really my style, but I loved the yarn. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to frog this, which was hell, by the way. And because there's just so many sections and it was a mess. But anywho, I frogged the whole top and I have the yarn just sitting there looking at me. So I'm like, I might make like a little halter top from that. Again, just more summer friendly. The sun is on preheat right now, 90 degrees, so it'll start heating up real fast very soon here, and I want to have something to wear, something new, and like the birthday tee is going to take a while. Louisa's skirt maybe finish sooner than that. Pierre dress is going to take a while, so summer friendly things, summer friendly knits is our focus. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Stay tuned for more project updates, and I will post them as I make progress. And that is it for me. But thanks so much for watching, and I will post again soon. Bye.